For the central west slopes and plains, fine and mainly sunny, a mild day, Dubbo and Parkes both fine and 24. For the upper western region, fine with high cloud increasing in the west, a mild to warm day. Cobar fine 25, Burke fine and 27.
Hello, I'm Jockey Sanderson. I've been coaching and competing for the last 12 years, flying from the tranquil flatlands of Australia to the slightly more stronger conditions of the Alps. I've had many students asking many questions, and since making security in flight, I've definitely noticed there's a need to make another educational video that takes you, the pilot, through all aspects of cross-country flying. Might go over Barra, but depending on the wind direction and strength, hopefully we'll stay over the slightly more hillocky areas, using that line of cloud to go on our big distance.
Be prepared. The worst thing is to go places without knowledge of where you're going, so plan a route, think about where you're getting picked up from, possible areas of where there won't be any roads, tiger country, that sort of thing. Have all your equipment sorted out, make sure all your batteries are charged. The worst thing is 4 hours into an epic day to have your Vario go flat on you or your GPS to go flat. It's always a bastard.
If you ever want to imagine how the air is flowing around mountains or up valleys, then just think of the water, because water and air move in very similar ways. For example, like here in Bondi Beach, you can see the waves crashing up and over and around these isolated rocks here and accelerating up these narrow little gullies and valleys. That's exactly what the air does. So if you want to imagine what it's doing, if you arrive at a new site and you haven't flown it, then just imagine what the water would be doing, and there you'll get a pretty good idea and picture in your head of where to go and where not to go. When you're flying at thermic sites, it's always good to get to the takeoff early to give yourself time to get your gear ready and relax. And when the conditions become good enough for you to stay up, then you should go. This gives you plenty of time in the air to assess the conditions, as they do change from day to day. Now, I know you can all fly, and I know you can all take off, but there are a few key points that will help you get it right. Because when you're cross-country flying, when you're traveling around the world, you may come to sites like this, which are very tight, very small, quite steep, with a few obstacles around. So you've got to get your takeoff absolutely perfect. So a few tips. First is practice ground handling at home. Don't just think, if it's not flyable, I'm not going to bother getting my glider out. Practice, practice, practice. Try and practice doing the cross-hand launch, which is keeping one hand, the right hand in the right brake and the left hand in the left brake, so that when you pull it up, it's all there. You brake it, you keep moving backwards, you turn, the correct hand's in the correct brake, and you go. And that minimizes the fumbling around and the possibility of having a big front collapse. When you pop it up, make sure it's straight into the wind and you brake, control, keep moving down the hill, especially if the wind is light. Keep the pressure on the glider and move down the hill and take off. If, for some reason, especially on a thermic site, you are taking off and you're taken to the left, then go to the left with it and pull on the right brake, settle it down, allow it to stabilize into wind, and then you'll take off, rather than just fighting it and just crashing into the bushes to the side of the takeoff. Just go with it, swing underneath it, run down the hill and take off.
Prepared, various radios all the time. So when I'm teaching my, competition pilot, at 10 o'clock before sleep, you have to be ready with the batteries and everything, and then in the morning, you no hurry. Myself, my first cross country was, I never thought, or I never planned before. The day was just good feeling, so I was very high. Then, I just fly. I thought I should go there, and then I went there. Then I take down the thermals, and then I climb. And then I looked the other place, and I say, oh, that looks good. So I went there. That was my first flying. So I think the cross country comes by chance, the first cross country. So you need to always be ready to fly, and then no need to plan big distance for the first cross country.
The important thing to do after taking off is take off and do your first leg into wind, if there is a into-wind leg. And from here, there was an into-wind leg coming from the left. So as soon as you take off, go left, go into wind. It gives yourself a slower ground speed, and therefore if anything was to go wrong, then you're not going very fast before you touch down on the slope again. So it's always good. It gives you time to sort of get into your harness, relax, chill out and get used to the day. So now we're just soaring in front of a takeoff. The air's coming up, thermals are working good, there's nice cumulus out in the flatlands. Things are looking very nice today. So we're just cruising up and down the ridge, soaring in the gentle dynamic flow of the air as it is deflected up the ridge, up the hill. Now what we'll do is we'll hook the cores that come up these bowls here. Here's one, so we'll do a nice turn around to the left. You can bury the brake in the core because it's good to turn in the lift section so that you maximise the efficiency of the soaring beat. Okay, now as I come towards the hill, you always want to be weight shifting slightly away so that if anything does go wrong, deflations, whatever, you're immediately weight shifting away from danger, which is the hill.
Early in the day, or when the lift is weak, you must be prepared to get in close to the hill to make the most out of any air that's going up, elegantly banking on the hard lift sections and then easing it off as you drop back into your next soaring beat.
See, this hill is very good example of a flat top mountain. It has a flat top, so the thermal is actually coming up the face, dripping off the crest of the hill, the edge of the hill, dripping off. So the thermal sort of column goes up like that, and if you had a lee side thermal on the other side, the thermal will come up this side. So in the middle, at the top of the hill, you have a triangle of dead air. So you always want to avoid that, because what happens if people are concentrating too much on trying to circle in the lift, they circle, go over the back of the flat top too low, get in the sort of dead air, and end up top landing again. So it's always important to sort of do a running track shaped thermal when you're low in front of a launch or in front of a flat mountain. So what you do is you point into wind, you use the lift, turn, go downwind, quickly turn back into wind, use the lift into wind, turn quickly into wind. By doing that, you stay in the column of lift and you don't get circled back onto the flat top and have to land.
Often you find better lift upwind. This means that if you're flying in a thermal, you've no idea where the best part of the thermal is. If in doubt, you just head back upwind. And the reason behind this is that thermals drift downwind. So if you have, say, a hot rock which is producing a thermal or a field, the strong thermals will climb very quickly and the weak thermals will get drifted by the wind. So if you're thermaling in a weak thermal, if you go upwind, then you hit the stronger one because it gets drifted less by the wind. So search upwind is a very, very good piece of advice.
When there's thermals in both the flatlands and on the hill, you have to make the decision to cut out if it's not working on the hill. So if it's very flat and very sinky on the hillside, it's normally because the air is being drawn into the flatlands where it's actually lifting. So if you arrive at a hill and there's not much doing, then have a look out in the flats and see if the thermal is releasing, normally from the trigger point, which will be the flatlands, and then a tree line, and that's where it releases, which is just in front of the hill itself. So we're now going on a glide straight. We're in sync now, but we're going straight towards the thermal that we know is working, because we can see another pilot is thermaling in it.
If you do find yourself low in a more stable, warm valley breeze, then fly downwind over a source, for example a ploughed field. And if you hit lift, turn back into wind and hold that for a few seconds, and then quickly turn back downwind and quickly back into wind again, holding it and then turning again. Keep doing that running track shape 360 and allow yourself to be drifted off the source as the thermal goes downwind over other smaller thermals. Soon it will gather momentum and trigger from buildings, for example. As the thermal is then pushed up into the cooler, calmer air, then it rises faster and your downwind legs are not so sinky and it's constant lift all the way around in your 360. Stay in the 360, coring the thermal well all the way to base.
Getting better now. Here we are. This is good. Pilot's going to the left, so I'm going to go to the left too. Lasted for a good 4 seconds, so I'll turn around in this one.
As a basic rule of thumb, whenever you enter lift, wait 4 seconds and then turn, because that's the time it takes you to do a full 360 and stay in the lift section. Thermaling isn't just about doing 360s. You often have to fly straight for a while or do 180-degree turns just to stay in the best section of lift.
The core here, so I'm flattening out, centering on the core, that's nice, and I'll turn again.